Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. The current events that have been taking place in the One Piece manga have been incredibly surprising, and there are a lot of interesting conflicts getting ready to take place. Conflicts that could lead to a much bigger confrontation if it continues in the way things are going. So in today's video, we're going to talk about what these events that are going on Egghead Island, and how they could portend to some things that are going to happen later in the One Piece work, how this could eventually affect the world of One Piece, and then we'll talk about our expectations for the next few chapters. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you consider leaving us a like, or even subscribe, and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, currently in One Piece, we're on the island of Egghead, and we see that CP0 is landed and looking to attack anyone that they can get their hands on. Now they first confronted Atlas, who tried to stop them from getting on the island, but Lucci easily managed to destroy part of their body, making it impossible for them to remain in combat. After Sentomaru arrived with the Seraphim to confront CP0, Lucci also attempted to take his life, although it seems like he failed and just managed to injure and knock Sentomaru out. But this also prevented Sentomaru from being able to remain in control and issue orders to the Seraphim. As luck or fate would have had it, Luffy's group ended up crossing paths with Lucci, and Lucci tried to take on Luffy, but as we and many others in the community predicted, he's just not able to take on Luffy because he doesn't have the strength to fight a Yonko. It looked like Lucci maybe managed to stay on his feet in combat, but once Luffy decided to fight seriously, or more ridiculously, Lucci really didn't stand a chance. There were many parallels in this fight between Luffy and Lucci that went all the way back to Eni's lobby, and it mirrored some of the things that had happened in their previous fight. Of course, Luffy was victorious again after giving an incredible punch to Lucci, and this left him unconscious for a while and allowed the Straw Hats to get back together again. At the end of the chapter, we see that the Straw Hats have been reunited with the Punks, with only Brook and Zoro missing to reunite with them. Meanwhile, CP0 recovered and is in the possession of 4 Seraphim, namely S-Snake, S-Bear, S-Shark, and S-Hawk. In addition to whatever CP0 has planned, we also have learned that the Marines are approaching Egghead along with Admiral Kizaru, which is gonna lead to a major confrontation really soon, because we saw in this last chapter that Lucci and even Kizaru confirmed that they don't intend to let Luffy and the others get off this island. Although it looks like the Straw Hats might be in serious trouble, they still do have a really big advantage in combat. The Straw Hats do have a surprise factor, and they may not even know that they have it. We know that Kuma is on his way to Egghead, and then we just haven't seen him arrive yet, and it's possible that he's doing something really important for Vegapunk, because as we saw a few chapters ago, Shaka told Dragon that Egghead was going to be attacked, and it was very likely that Shaka, or otherwise Vegapunk, was in danger of losing their life. After everything kicked off on Egghead, Kuma woke up, possibly receiving an alert signal from Vegapunk, and then teleported himself to Egghead to help out, something that he may have been programmed to do a very long time ago, as he'd had his body modified by Vegapunk multiple times. So it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that a distress call could have been implanted in Kuma in case something really bad was happening to Vegapunk. So after this internal warning was activated, Kuma started to act. However, he's still not going to appear anytime soon, because we know that although his Pawpaw fruit can teleport him anywhere in the world, there is still some time it takes for him to travel. Now we don't know if Oda is still planning on a big Straw Hat confrontation against the Navy and CP0, or if he's really going to want to continue the story of One Piece and have the fight happen later. So we don't know what role Kuma's actually going to play at this time. It may be something bigger, or maybe it's just a smaller kind of wrap up or closure that he can have with Bonnie before moving on and going on to something else. But either way, with the arrival of the Navy in Egghead, it may be looking impossible for the Straw Hats to escape the island with Vegapunk. They might have no other choice but to face the Navy and CP0. And when you think about it, this may be something that isn't going to be as big of a problem as it might have been in the past, because our crew is so much stronger. I mean, the Monster Trio are strong enough to take on these enemies, because so far the biggest threats are going to be Kizaru, Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy. But it's also possible that we could have some unknown or otherwise sideline characters that are part of the Navy or CP0 that get called in for this confrontation against the Straw Hats, because Kizaru could summon all available Marines to go to Egghead. We also know that the closest Navy outpost is where the Sword members are, and they've been desperately wanting to leave so that they could go and find out what's happening with Kobe. So they might show up with the idea, but once they learn it's Luffy, it might change things around. Although we still don't know what function Sword plays within the Marine organization, we do know that it's composed of very powerful Marines. Although their leader X Drake and one of the main members Kobe are not present because of some of the things that happened during the Wano arc. For instance, X Drake may have lost his life after confronting Hawkins, and of course Kobe was captured by Teach during his raid on Kuja Island. But still, this makes Sword one of the most powerful groups within the Marines, even though they're still a smaller group. To be fair, we still don't know the power of the other members that were presented in the work so far, but they do seem to have some great strength and incredible skills, so this group might be of great use to Kizaru in this difficult time when he's looking to face up against a Yonko. On the other hand, the Straw Hats still have a great advantage, because not only are they a powerful group, being able to face the crew of an ancient Yonko, but they're going to be able to face off against these Marines and CP0, but it may not be as easy as they think. And let's also not rule out the X factor of what Vegapunk may have on his island and whether his island is going to be able to leave in the first place. Now, what I mean by that is many in the community have speculated that the top part of Egghead Island could be some kind of a spaceship. After all, they do have the Vegaforce 1, that is that giant robot that can fly. And we do know that they want to be able to modify things to be able to fly all around the world. So perhaps Vegapunk has an ace up his sleeve that we just haven't thought about yet. And not only that, Vegapunk and his creations might be able to strengthen or boost the Straw Hats' power, whether it be temporarily or permanently, to help even more during this great fight that is yet to come. Atlas is currently being repaired, which means once they are fixed up, we'll have the 6 punks reunited, and we might be able to then start the evacuation process. However, now that Sentomaru has been definitively taken out, the punks are going to be the ones responsible for stopping the Seraphim, who are right now under the control of CP0. As was mentioned in the previous chapters, the ones who have superior command voice control are the World Nobles, who are just below Vegapunk. Now, initially we could deduce that only Stella, who would be the original body of Vegapunk, would have this superior voice command. But we've already seen Shaka giving orders to Eshar, which means that all the punks may have the same command voice as Vegapunk over the Seraphim, being able to give absolute orders over anyone else who commands them. This means that at some point in the upcoming battle, the punks will manage to regain control over the Seraphim, leaving CP0 and the Navy at a huge disadvantage. However, in order for this to be done, it's necessary that some punk give the command personally to a Seraphim. It may not be one of those things that can just go over a loudspeaker, which means that they're going to have to put their life in danger in order for them to give the command to the Seraphim and take them back over. This in and of itself would be extremely risky because the CP0 members are not only highly trained, but possess incredible speed, and if they see any punk that is capable of giving orders to the Seraphim, they definitely will take measures to destroy them and keep them from taking over control. We saw that Lucci easily managed to destroy Atlas's face with just a single attack, without even having to transform into his awakened Zoan form, which means that Kaku and Stussy could probably do much the same stuff to the other punks. And with Kizaru's arrival on Egghead Island, this is going to become an even more difficult task for the Straw Hats. Kizaru is a very powerful admiral, being the fastest among the admirals because of his glint fruit and his ability to travel at light speed. We also know that Kizaru does have some kind of past with the Straw Hats because he has caused problems from them previously, although they are now stronger and are able to deal with this hat because most of the Straw Hats have had the training and hockey to be able to tank his hits. But really, the only one that is going to be able to really defeat Kizaru is Luffy, because he was the only one able to take on Kaido, albeit not alone and solo. He had a lot of help in that fight, Kaido being one of the strongest Yonko, so it means that Luffy may be the only opponent worthy of being able to take out Kizaru during this great confrontation that is still to come. But before anybody starts going off in the comments, we also want to admit that yes, Zoro could also present an immense challenge for Kizaru as well, because we know the swordsman is able to cut through Kaido's body during the Wano arc, demonstrating that he is just as strong as Luffy. However, Zoro still needs a bit of training to be able to get control over his new Conqueror's haki that he's just awakened, and in this way, finally he'll be able to approach the level of a Yonko and Admiral. So again, it might come back to Luffy, who's gonna need to take on Kizaru, at least to give them some time to escape, while the other Straw Hats will deal with CP0 and the rest of the Marines. Because, as I said before, we don't know exactly who all is going to appear if this fight takes place. But either way, Sanji and Zoro will be able to take on more challenging opponents, like Lucci, Kaku, and Stussy, as well as any other major problems that come up while Luffy is taking on Kizaru. We may even get a treat of seeing the full matchup and rematch of what happened in Eni's lobby. For instance, Kaku and Zoro again, just as it happened in these last chapters encounters between Luffy and Lucci, a confrontation with references way back to their past. And just to come back around to it again, please keep in mind that Vegapunk is still extremely calm about everything happening in this situation, which means that he's gotta have something in mind. I mean, brain like his, he's gotta have multiple plans for escape, and some ways that the Navy and CP0 are not gonna count on. Many in the community right now wonder if this is gonna involve Kuma. Now again, as I said before, we don't know where Kuma is, and that he's likely in transit on his way to Egghead, but it's likely that Vegapunk may be aware when he gets to the island, because Kuma is the only one that would be able to get the Straw Hats off the island safely, because it's gonna be surrounded by the Navy, and it's only gonna be through Kuma's power of the Pawpaw Fruit that the Straw Hats and Vegapunk will be able to escape the island without the need for boats or other means of transport. So although this might seem really easy to happen, there could be some unforeseen events that come up, and we still have to wait until Kuma arrives on the scene. It means that the Straw Hats are at least gonna have to buy time until all this can happen. Let's never forget that Oda is really unpredictable in the best ways when it comes to combat, and he usually uses disadvantages or advantages to create a new combat scenario, causing new, important, and different ways for events to play out. So it's only going to be in these next several chapters that we're going to be able to see what is really going to happen and whether this great battle is actually going to take place. But let's remember that it's only going to be in the new year because One Piece is currently on a break. So while we're waiting, we look forward to discussing all the possibilities with you as we see this next phase of the final saga of the One Piece story unfold. But with all that said, my friends, we'd love to know what you think about it now. Do you think there's going to be a big battle? Or do you think Vegapunk's going to have something up his sleeve and everybody's going to escape? I mean, there have been some murmurings around the community about the Straw Hats going to space. I mean, we do know from Enel's cover story that there is technology on the other planets or moons that orbit our world. So could it be part of the storytelling where Vegapunk takes them up there and then they go to Elbaf to get the rest of the story? Or are we going to see our first matchup between Luffy and an admiral? Let us know what you think in the comments below. So as we wrap up the video for the day, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially those of you who've stayed with us here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.